So to add a layering mask, I'm going to go right down here to this little icon. I'm going to go ahead and click Add Layering Mask. And there you go. There we have it. And what's great about layering masks is I have it cropped, but I can always delete my layering mask and get my original photo back. And so that's why I like using layering mask. So all I had to do is this is how you add a layering mask. We'll do that several times here in the future. So I went ahead and changed the position of the flower a little bit so it didn't kind of butt up to this one exactly. So we have our spine, we have our author name, we have our title. We basically have our template completely set up. And now we need to do the back. So we're not going to do a complete design for the back. We're just going to kind of emulate it. So I'm just going to make that black. You could start to add everything in here. Type, a lot of times I like to do blocked paragraphs of type. I like to do that in Illustrator, but in this case we already have everything set up. We of course bring a character in. We could bring all this kind of thing, a little bit about the author, a little idea about the book, and we're going to definitely be doing this in the future. But let's kind of keep it at that. We have two other great book covers that we want to design, but we have all this set up perfectly. So now if we ever have to do a book of this size, we already have it set up. Of course, we're going to do it in Illustrator next time, so I can show you how to do it in another program. So there we have it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to, the guides are not going to be exported, so we don't have to worry about getting rid of those. So let's do this. Let's go to View. We're going to take off the guides. So we're just going to go take off the guides, and there's a little shortcut you could do. And now we're going to go around and make sure everything looks okay. There's nothing jumping from the cover to the spine. Like this little area right here, we just need to make sure that we cover that up. Little areas. We can always toggle our guides if we want to know exactly where the bleed is. So that looks good. I think we're ready to export this. It has bleed already added to it. We're going to go to File, Save As. We're going to save it as a PDF. There it is, Photoshop PDF. We're going to export it. So one thing we're going to have to do, and this kind of reminds me, is we did all the checks that we needed to. We need to convert this back to CMYK. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to go to Mode, and there's going to be some slight color changes, so just be aware. So we're just going to Mode, and we're switching back into CMYK mode. That's the mode they're going to request to have the book cover in. We can go ahead and flatten because we're done, but I'm not going to flatten just in case. Click on OK. So you can see how there's been significant color changes to the point where it kind of ruins the book. So we're going to go back to where we were before we converted. So that's where we were. There's something we can do to avoid some of that. So we're going to try to convert it back to CMYK, and we're going to try flattening it. And sometimes that helps. So we flattened it, basically taking all the layers and bringing it into one flat image. That's basically what you're doing now. We just have one image, which is fine because we're getting ready to export this. So that preserved a lot of our colors. It converted a lot better when we flattened it. So that's just like a little trick. If you convert it back to CMYK and you're very unhappy with the colors, you can flatten it. Okay, so now we're going to do our Save As PDF again. And let's see what happens. Okay, the settings you chose and save. Okay, that's okay. So we're going to go down to Press Quality. That's going to be a default option. And we are going to unclick Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities because that'll make the file size super big. Compression 300, that's great. Maximum quality. Output, that is great. It's CMYK mode. That's all this is default. Pretty much ready to go. We don't need to add bleed because we already have it. So let's save PDF. So it's saving it. It's going to take a while because it's a pretty big document. Let's kind of see what it looks like here. Let's see what our PDF looks like. So there's our PDF. We'd send that. The printer shouldn't have any problem. You let them know there's already bleed that has been added if there is bleed that's required. So here we are, our final book cover exported in PDF form, and we have kind of a final design here. We have a spine. We'll eventually, we could do the back later on if we have extra time. but you kind of know the basics of how it's set up, how we export, how to add bleed, how to think about color, how to think about doing some of the concept of the cover, and thinking about how to do type and layer styles. So we've learned a lot in this. I personally prefer doing any print project in Illustrator. We kept it in Photoshop just because this was so photo editing heavy of a project. We decided to keep it in Photoshop, but I do prefer Illustrator when it comes to more simple book designs and getting type and the back, that kind of stuff done.